About 3 weeks ago, my mom told my brother and I this story, and it straight up gave us the chills. Her friend Sally is a lifelong family friend. She would frequently visit her friends and family in Oklahoma, and we live in a small town in southern Ontario, Canada. Sally would drive 20 hours straight overnight to get from our town to another small town. She did this simply to save money and obviously wanted to arrive as soon as she could. About 30 years ago, she decided to head south on a visit. It's no big deal for her, she's done this a few times, so she packs up and heads out. At some point after driving for about 14 to 15 hours, she started getting pretty tired. Being as it was probably the 80s, it was a little safer, so she decided she would stop at the rest stop to sleep for a little bit and resume her drive first thing in the morning. She parks in a very well lit and busy rest stop. She felt at ease because of how many lights there were and the abundance of travelers stopping and going. She gets out for a bathroom break and comes back and settles in her car. About then, an RV pulls up beside her and an elderly couple get out. The man asks her about coming from Canada. They strike up a little conversation and the couple talks to Sally for a bit. They tell her they are heading north and just needed to have a sleep for the night. They wanted to talk because they were unsure if a rest stop was okay to stop at, but seeing Sally, they were at ease. They say goodnight and have a good trip, and the couple went back in their RV. Sally locked her doors up and went to sleep. 2 to 3 hours later, Sally woke up with a really unsettling feeling. She looks around, nothing. A few people were going into the rest stop and the parking lights were all on. She assumes she is feeling bad because she's tired and a car isn't the best place to sleep in. After 10 minutes, she said that this feeling actually got worse and it was a jarring, queasy, uneasy feeling. She sits back and tries to shrug it off. This didn't work, and apparently she had every red alarm and instinct telling her that she needs to go. She panics, starts her car, and peels off. She doesn't care where, she just knew she had to get away from there. So about 20 miles down the road, she finds a motel and gas station. She decides to see if she could get a room for what little money she had. She converses with the person in charge, he cuts her a deal, and he doesn't want a young woman driving alone at night. She gets a key, pops in her hotel room, and sleeps for the night. No issues, all in peace. Around 9 a.m., she wakes up, showers, changes clothes, and decides to relax for a few minutes. She turns on the TV and what was on it actually gave me chills. There was a breaking news story about an elderly couple killed in the middle of the night. The news shows the RV that Sally was parked next to, exact spot, exact rest stop, and she sees the fast food drink cup she dropped on accident that rolled under her car. Sometime during the night, a man broke in their RV and killed them, then left, presumably right before Sally had left. The man was never caught, and since then, Sally stopped at hotels for the night and avoided rest stops. My dad works for a large printing company, and they had completed an overnight rush job for a business. My dad got tasked with dropping off the order. It would take 8 hours each way to drop off the order, and he was going to take my mom as she was a retired teacher, and he figured it would be nice to have someone to drive each way. However, the night before he was going to leave, my mom came down with the flu. He left early the next morning and promised my mom if he got tired, he would stop either at a rest stop or a restaurant. So he made it without incident to drop off the papers. It was about noon when he set off again and soon realized the traffic was horrible. My dad decided that he'd take the long way home. It would add an hour or two, but he feared it would take longer to wait in the traffic. He drove straight for hours until he realized he had to go to the bathroom. He also was starting to get a little sleepy and figured he should pull over maybe and get a quick nap in. It was winter time, so at 4:30 the sun was starting to set and he noticed a rest stop ahead. He got out, called my mom to tell her he was stopping to stretch his legs and maybe catch a little nap, then headed to the bathrooms. Now the place was pretty much deserted. There was an old Chevy parked next to my dad, and there was an RV with a family packing up what was probably their dinner. He went in the bathroom and opened the first stall. He was in there doing his business when he hears someone talking. He thinks at first they are talking to him until he realizes the person is A, on the phone, or B, talking to themselves. The person on the phone says, "It's going to be okay, we will just take another, and then we will bring it to mother." My dad said he sounded like he was young, between late teens to early 20s. Then, before my dad could say anything, while he zipped up his pants and started to get a little freaked out, the guy screams and starts beating his head while screaming at himself in a woman's high-pitched voice. He kept saying, "You're a stupid boy, a stupid, stupid boy. Mother is very angry." At that moment, my dad was freaked out and runs out of the stall, and he quickly opens the door and runs to his car. He locks the car door when he notices a skinny young man run out of the bathroom. He is looking for my dad, and he sees him in his car. My dad had the car started and was backing up when the guy runs full sprint at him screaming. My dad peeled out of there. He was so shaken up by this, he pulled over in the next town over at a diner, getting a coffee to go. He was paying for his coffee when that same Chevy pulls into the parking lot. My dad grabs his coffee and hides his face looking at some knickknacks in the little gift shop. The kid walks in and goes up to the nicer older cashier who my dad bought his coffee from, and he throws his arms around this woman and starts sobbing about how he's sorry, mother, and how he let another one get away. My dad heard enough. He quickly tossed his coffee he hadn't drunk yet, as it was too hot, and made his way slowly to his car. He got in and sped off, and didn't stop until he was safely home. Till this day, my dad refuses to stop at rest stops. This whole story freaks me out and makes me think of Norman Bates. I hope my father and I never meet you again. My family and I were driving from Ohio to Wyoming one holiday season to visit family about 10 years ago. Due to storms further north, we traveled straight west instead of northwest at first and split the trip at Omaha, staying the night before heading up through Nebraska into South Dakota. Once we were far enough north, we turned west onto I-90. At that point, it had been over an hour since we saw anywhere that might have had a public restroom, and we were on state route, so no rest areas. Those of you who have traveled with young kids know that's close to their bladder limit, and our daughter was begging to stop somewhere to go to the bathroom. South Dakota was just as deserted, or even worse, as we headed west. Finally, we reached a desperately needed rest stop. Just as we pulled in, the truck that had been following us for a while pulled in too. I didn't think too much of it at first until I started to open my door. My head was turned to the right, where the truck was parked a couple spots over. My eyes met the driver's, and I just shivered. He was a skinny white guy, straggly gray-brown beard, and dark eyes. I could see that he was wearing a dirty blue plaid shirt. He got out of his 90s brown and cream truck and started rummaging in the bed. I told my husband I didn't want to go into the rest stop alone because of the guy and the weird feeling I got from him. He thought I was being a little silly but agreed to come in with us. At that point, the next stop was Wall, South Dakota, about 100 miles away according to the huge billboards we'd passed advertising it. He figured he'd go to the bathroom even though he didn't feel the need. I grabbed our daughter and we headed inside. We were followed by the guy who'd finished rummaging at his truck but wasn't carrying anything when I glanced back. My daughter and I did our business in the woman's restroom and head back out to the lobby. As I expected, my husband was already out there. The old guy was also in the tiny lobby area. He was just standing there, staring at my husband. My husband rushed us back to our car. As we were buckling in, he locked the doors. Then he told me that the guy hadn't even gone in the restroom and was just standing in the lobby the whole time. He agreed with me that we might have just had a close call, and he was glad it hadn't just been me and our daughter there. However, that's not where the story ends. Remember how I mentioned Wall, South Dakota, and that it was 100 miles away? Well, that was 100 miles of pretty empty landscape, but a decent number of turnoffs from the interstate. We didn't see the truck following us and thought the whole episode was behind us. Except when we stopped in Wall to grab lunch and some road snacks, plus look around at the homey but fun tourist trap in the middle of nowhere. We saw the guy in the store not even 20 feet from us. Same face, same beard, dirty plaid shirt. Thankfully, we'd already eaten, so since he was staring at us again, we quickly paid for our snacks and trinkets and got the heck out of there. Thankfully, we didn't see him again, but I was seriously creeped out until we reached our relatives in Wyoming safely with no other sight of that truck.